let's start.
Yes, you 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. We'll do it very quickly. So my name is Jens. I work for Red Hat on Virtio. I would just want to give an update on what's happened since last FOSDEM, what we've been working on. So we'll skip this. Everybody knows what Virtio is, right? And so last year I was here and I talked about the Virtio 1.1 specification and went into more specific of what we did for the new feature called packed Virtues and other things. So that's, you can go and watch that. Now I want to talk about what we did for the Virtio specification in the meantime. And later in my talk I will go about some other things that happened in the Virtio space, some topics there. So Virtio 1.1, so Virtio there's a specification for Virtio. It's a standardized under the Oasis umbrella, and for Virtio version 1.1 we're focusing on performance improvements, but also on how we can make it easier for hardware vendors to implement Virtio in hardware and to make so there's a few new feature bits for that. There's also other things changed in Virtio not related to hardware. We have some new Virtio devices that I will talk about. Lots of people, lots of companies or vendors or people in the community contributed to Virtio, and the current specification that's under final review for 30 days, I think, maybe a little less now. It's final review, so people can look at it now, and then after this period it will be published. So what did we do for hardware support? Last year here I talked about packed Virtues and how it's a simpler way of implementing Virtues. We went from having 2 ring buffers and many other data structures in shared memory to 1 ring buffer. That makes it more cache friendly, but also more friendly for hardware implementations because they have only one place in memory where they have to go and look at if new descriptors are available, things like this. We introduced some feature bits. So one is for memory barriers, basically. Hardware devices have different requirements for memory barriers than a software implemented device has. There's a feature bit for that. So if the device turns this on, that means the driver has to use different memory barriers. There's a feature bit for restricted memory access. So on some platforms, it can be that the device cannot access all of memory for different reasons. There could be IMU, there could be some other address translation from bus addresses to physical addresses, something like that. So that would be a way that the device could say, hey, I'm on this, I'm restricted with respect to memory, and then platform code would have to handle this kind of things. There's another feature bit for enabling specifications only for specific descriptors. So in our descriptor ring, let's say, that I want a notification when descriptor X becomes available, and only then a notification is sent, basically. And then another thing is that we can attach additional data to notifications. So things like what's the latest available descriptor, the latest used one, the case of packed Virtues also, the rep counters, things like this. I talked a little bit in more detail about Virtio hardware accelerators and what we did there at DevConf. The slides are online, and I think there will be a video as well soon. So if you're interested in that, then you can go and look at that. Another thing that we're working on is Virtio net failover device. So this is basically for in the guest in the VM, you would have automatic failover for networking. So you have basically 3 devices, a failover device, a primary, and a standby device. And the failover device basically handles switching from one to another So this primary device could be a pass-through SR-IOV device, so you have a very fast data pass. And then you have VirtioNet as a standby device. And this is nice for a few things. One thing would be that you can do hypervisor-controlled live migration. You basically unplug the fast SR-IOV device, and it automatically switches over to the VirtioNet path, which is slower, but you can use the Virtio live migration code, Virtio live migration framework, to migrate to a target system. And there, if available, you can plug another fast SR-IOV card for fast networking. So the gas part of this is upstream. In QMU, we're still working on this. There's still some discussion about different approaches, how to involve management or not, a management layer or not, things like this. So still work in progress. We have some new Virtio devices that were worked on during last year. We have Virtio IRMU. We have Virtio Crypto, which is basically so that you can make use of a crypto accelerator and a host in your guest. We have Virtio VSOC. It's basically for guest to host communication via a socket. You basically open a socket with a new address family, and you can use that to implement guest agents or services in the hypervisor, things like this. Virtio GPU, we had this before, I think, but now they have 3D support. They basically push down graphics state to QMU, and that translates it to OpenGL and then passes it to the GPU. Virtio MEM is a device that's still being worked on. It's for memory hot plug for the virtual machine, and it's basically a unified approach to handle all of this in QMU, handle different page sizes, support NUMA, things like this. Virtio Balloon was there before, but has a new feature for free page hinting. So basically the guest can say, hey, it can report to the hypervisor, hey, these pages are free. And one thing where this could be used is for faster live migration. There's a Virtio of S that's still in progress. It's to share files or folders between guest and the hypervisor. And then I also heard someone talking about he's working on, or they are working on Virtio Audio, but there's no patches yet, so we'll see if that ever shows up. Virtio Hardware Accelerator, so I talked about what we did for the specification. There's actually one device that supports this now from Intel. It was announced last year at Open ResearchConf. It's an FPGA-based card. It's very powerful. One of the things it can do is VirtioNet offloading in hardware. And not only for the new Virtio 1.1 packed VirtQs, it supports Virtio back to 0.95, I think. So yeah, there's also work going on the software side. Intel has been doing a lot of work here. Basically, they implemented a new framework that so that you can make use of the hardware card with the existing virtualization stack. They have patches for QMU. They introduce a new MDEV in the kernel to have a generic device interface that will work not only with the Intel card but also with other accelerator cards. And the basic idea of this framework is to decouple data path and control path so that you can have the data path pass through to your VM, and you have the control path still going via QMU and via the VFIO interfaces. And so basically you have the advantage that you have a very fast data pass-through like performance, but you have features like live migration can work for this rather easily. There was a talk about VDPA at KVM forum last year that goes into much more detail than I can do now in my 10-minute slot. This is something I will not cover now, and you can go and look at it. And coming to my summary, There's the new Virtio 1.1 spec. The final review is only on for a few more days, so if you're interested in this, then go and look at it now. If you don't have time now, we can always add features later. It has a lot of changes, especially for hardware accelerators, but for lots of other things that I didn't cover now. And what I think we will see in the future is more work on page hinting, more hardware implementation features, and also I think that there will be work on VDPA for containers. It's the end of my talk. I have a monthly meeting that we do on the phone, so there's mailing lists and everything, of course, but if you're, for example, if you work for a hardware vendor and interested in implementing Virtio in hardware and you have specific questions, you can also join us in this monthly meeting that we have. The next one will be February 13. Just contact me and I will put you on the invitation list. I think that's it. Thank you.